I went into the hospital thinking I was having gas pains and I came out with a baby. Hello everyone and welcome to our birth vlog slash birth story. James came much earlier than expected, so I'll mainly be just telling what happened because I didn't film a lot of it because I wasn't prepared, but that's okay. So let's get into it so I can tell you about how the events unfolded on that day. So it all started on September 30th. I woke up at 3 a.m., which was super normal for me. I was always waking up at 3 a.m. at this point. And I woke up with some gas pains. And before I got pregnant with James, Derry and I, we weren't pals. We did not mix well. That doesn't mean I didn't have it. It just means that I would have an upset stomach afterwards. And so on the 29th of September, that evening for dinner, I had like a lot of dairy products. I think I had ice cream. I had boba tea with like whole milk. So I was just having lots of dairy. So when I woke up at 3 a.m. with the gas pains on September 30th, I really didn't think anything of it. And I let them kind of pass that evening. They weren't like super intense, or morning, however you want to view 3 a.m., evening or morning. I let them kind of pass just because they weren't super intense and I was already uncomfortable just like by being so pregnant. So it wasn't like they were overpowering like that uncomfortability. So I went back to sleep after a little bit and woke up and they still were there. I thought it was kind of weird that they were still there when I woke up, but I also was just like, whatever, this is the consequences of my own actions. And I continued on with my day. My grandma was in town because my family was taking shifts of who would spend time with me since I was so close to the end of my pregnancy and Mark still wasn't home because of his deployment. So it was my grandma's shift to be with me for like 3 weeks, and we'd already been together for like 2 weeks maybe at that point. But anyway, we were gonna go to Kentucky and make a day of that day. So we did exactly that. We went to Kentucky that day. I drove us there. We had lunch there. We went around the town a tiny bit to get some DIY stuff for a project I wanted to do. And I consistently had the gas pain all day and was very uncomfortable. But I also, again, just didn't really think anything of it. I assumed that it was gas pain, so I was just dealing with it. I didn't take any medicine for it because I didn't know what you could take when you were pregnant, so I was just dealing with the pain. Then after that, we came home and just kind of relaxed. I still wasn't feeling good, so I asked her if we could have a relaxing night, which she was down for because that's pretty much what we were doing every night because I was just so like tired at that point. So we watched a documentary, we watched a like reality TV show, and my pain was just not going away. And at this point it was probably like 8 o'clock. And I was just super uncomfortable and could not figure out why my gas pain was still like sitting in me and why it was just getting worse. I was texting my mom at this point and telling her about my gas pain, so she's sending me videos on how to relieve it, and most of the videos I could not do because I was so pregnant, so it just like wouldn't have worked. But I was just keeping her updated on how I was feeling. I was telling my grandma about it because she had been hearing about it all day at this point. But she was like, you know, when I was pregnant with your mom, I felt my contractions in my back. And when she said that, I was kind of annoyed with her because I just didn't want to even think about having contractions when Mark wasn't home. So I was like, don't even put that feeling towards me. I don't want to think about having contractions. It's fine. Like, I know this is gas pain. So then she was like, why don't you just try timing it and seeing like how far apart you're getting these pains. So I downloaded a contractions app, still thinking that that's not what I'm having, because I thought contractions would be felt more like down south, if you know what I mean. And mine were like in my stomach / back. So it just like wasn't really a thought I would have. But I started timing it, and with my app, you have to do like 4 contractions timed before it tells you like what your next steps are. So I timed these pains as they were coming, and my app was like, you need to head to the hospital. So I tell my grandma this, and I'm like a mix of confused and freaking out because Mark's not home, but also I'm like, this is so weird. Like, I don't understand what's going on. And looking back now, I really should have understood what was going on, but in the moment, it just like wasn't crossing my mind. So my grandma was like, let's just go to the hospital, make sure everything's okay, get you checked out, and then we'll come home afterwards. And I was like, perfect. So I'm texting my mom to let her know I'm heading to the hospital to make sure I'm fine. I'm texting Mark's mom to let her know what's going on. And then I text Mark knowing that he probably wouldn't see it because his time zone was so different than mine. So he should have been sleeping. But he happened to be awake. So he texted me back and just said like, keep me updated. And it was really weird that he was awake because normally he would not be. So I'm just keeping everyone up to date. I go to my room with my grandma. We roughly pack a hospital bag because I didn't have one packed at all because I still had a month to go. And then she runs upstairs to pack her bag just to have like her iPad and like a book to keep her occupied if it's gonna be a long wait. And while she's upstairs, I start like leaking fluids. I'm thinking that this is pee because, again, very pregnant, 36 weeks along. I was at the point where it's not like it was the easiest to control my bladder, so I was just thinking it was pee. And so I told my mom, I texted her because she was in Idaho. I texted her what was going on, and I was like, hey, I'm starting to leak fluids. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm peeing myself right now. So I run to my room, change my clothes really fast to get that situation situated. And then we hop in the car and I drive us to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, I start feeling some of my contractions, but again, I think it's gas pain, so it's like, it's not a big deal to me. I'm just powering through driving us to the hospital, which is probably not safe, but in the moment, I didn't realize that. We get to the hospital, we go inside. I let the nurses know what's going on. They put me in the waiting room for a little bit. We wait there for like maybe 10-15 minutes. I'm texting the whole crew, letting them know what's going on. And then they finally put me in a room and they put a band on my stomach to measure James' heartbeat, I think. And then they're checking like all my vitals, my blood pressure, all that stuff. And they then check to see if I'm dilated or no, actually they did a couple tests on me that I was supposed to get done at my next appointment, which was on the upcoming Monday, and this was Saturday. So I hadn't made it to my appointment quite yet, but they were just gonna get those tests done and told me at my appointment I can just say I already had them done. And so I was like, great, we're both thinking I'm having my appointment on Monday, which means the baby is not coming anytime soon. So anyway, they do those tests and then they check to see if I'm dilated. And so they check it 2 different times. The first time they said that I was like 0 centimeters, maybe 1 centimeter dilated. And at that point I just felt relief because I was like, perfect, I'm not having this baby right now, like Mark can still make it home, because that was my like #1 concern in the moment, was that like Mark needed to be with me while we had our son. Then they were like, let me just double check and make sure that's correct. So they checked me a second time a different way, and that's when they told me that I was 3 centimeters dilated and that they were admitting me because I was going to have the baby. So I started panicking and crying because I was just, again, so concerned that Mark wasn't there. And like, I wasn't ready for him to come out yet. I didn't have his bedding set up, like his bed situation. I didn't even have my hospital bag packed. I just like was not prepared. I didn't have his car seat installed. So this is a PSA to install all of that stuff and have everything ready way far in advance, even if you think that this is not, like, you don't need be that prepared, you do. So just be prepared if you are having a baby anytime soon. But anyway, so then I started getting really emotional because Mark wasn't there, and I also started sounding the alarms to everyone saying, get home now, including Mark. So Mark started working towards getting a flight. My parents started working towards getting a flight, and I told my grandma that I was having the baby, so she was probably just in the waiting room waiting to come see me. I'm documenting this moment because Mark is not here. I've clearly been crying, but it's September 29th, 11:25. I came to the hospital because I've been having back pain all day, and I'm 3 centimeters dilated, and I'm getting admitted into the hospital, and Mark's trying to get on the first flight home, and my parents are now getting on a flight to come out here, and thank God my grandma's here, but it's happening. Once I was admitted, they brought me to the labor and delivery unit and put me in a room. I was in room number 7, which I was very happy about because I think that's a godly number, and so I felt like some peace in that moment because I was a little upset with God because I had been praying this whole pregnancy that Mark would make it home for our birth, and our son's birth, and I just knew at that point he wasn't going to, so I was a little upset. But God is not a genie, so just because I pray for something does not mean it's gonna happen. But being put in room number 7 felt comforting because then I felt like it was just a reminder, like, God is in control and everything's gonna happen how it's supposed to happen, and so that brought me some relief. I'm pretty sure I had boogers in my nose in my last clip, but sorry about that if you noticed. If you didn't notice, now I've pointed it out so you can notice if you'd like to. And I was crying, so I feel like I get a pass. But I made it to my hospital room, number 7, and I'm all hooked up and just waiting. It's now 12:45 a.m., officially October, and Mark got his flight. I think I said that last time. I'm having a contraction. Just a second. Okay, contraction over. I'm consistently leaking fluids. I have been violated in so many ways tonight already, but we are ready to have this baby. Well, I wasn't ready, but now I have to be. So we're keeping a positive attitude. I just pray that he is healthy, and I am just going with the flow, and we'll have my grandma film different clips of different things to remember this moment with. And here is my room. After I had been in the room for a while, they finally let my grandma come back. So she was able to hang out with me. At this point, it was probably like midnight or I don't even know, like 1. But we had got to the hospital at 10:45. I don't know if I ever mentioned that, but we had got there at 10:45. So it had been a few hours at this point, but time was flying. Like, time did not even feel like a thing. When I was in the hospital, I could not believe like how quickly it was going by. But I, at that point, was ready for my epidural. I was very uncomfortable, and I always thought that the epidural was like immediate. As soon as you got the epidural, your pain was gone. That was not the case. I got my epidural, and I'm still in pain. Not as intense of pain, but still in pain. However, my left leg is extremely numb and tingly, and my right one is starting to tingle. So I'm hoping that it'll officially kick in here shortly, and I will be able to rest a little bit. So I got my epidural, and it took probably like an hour and a half for it to kick in. So I was still consistently like feeling pain for an hour, and I was trying my best to be level-headed because I have a friend who's a labor and delivery nurse, and she told me how sometimes moms are like kind of mean before the epidural, and then after they get the epidural, they're so pleasant. And I just didn't want to be mean to my nurses, even though I was so uncomfortable. And so I was really focused on not getting upset, but I was getting upset because I was in so much pain. But I wasn't upset at the nurses. Like, I knew that they had no control over that. but I was upset at the situation because I always had thought that the pain would be gone immediately. So yeah, after an hour and a half, the pain was gone and I was just feeling more of like a pressure, but not feeling the intense contractions anymore. I feel like once the epidural finally kicked in and I couldn't feel my contractions anymore, the ball was rolling. We were going quickly, full speed ahead. Like the labor process had really felt like it started. They were starting to like turn me on my side. James was facing, I think he was either facing forwards or backwards, and they needed him faced the opposite direction than what he was facing. And I told them once it hit 3 a.m. he would turn on his own because James was super active at 3 a.m. like every single night. So I figured if they were going to count on him to move on his own, that would be the time to do it. But they still had me like turning on my side and stuff to try and get him to move. And he did end up flipping to the right way. Probably around 3 a.m. is my guess, because I could still feel him like moving around in there.
The nurse came in and checked on me, and I was 90% effaced. I don't know what that means, but 90% effaced, 4 to 5 centimeters dilated. And then she turned me on my side because James is facing upwards and they want him facing down, I think, or one or the other. He's not facing the right way, so they want him to face the correct way. And so I'm laying on my side, and my epidural has finally fully kicked in. I can still feel pressure, but I'm not feeling pain, which is amazing. It's currently 4:30 and I have the shivers, and I just got some more penicillin, and I am not tired enough to go to sleep, and I'm a little uncomfortable, so I'm not comfortable enough to go to sleep either. But I know I should get rest, but I'm not going to right now because I just feel like I can't. But that is the update of the hour.
At this point, he was getting ready to come out. I had asked the nurse when she had expected him to be born, and she said probably around lunchtime. But this was like 4 a.m. and she came in and was like, do you want the good news or the bad news? And I was like, I'll take like both of them, because what do you say in that situation when you're having a baby? Like, you're kind of freaking out. And she was like, the bad news is that your husband is not going to make it for this birth. But the good news is that you're 9 centimeters dilated and you're going to be having this baby soon. So that was like really heartbreaking for me that Mark wasn't going to be there. But I was also excited that James was coming out. So I had a range of emotions. But yeah, so he did not make it to noon, to say the least, or lunchtime. But anyway, here are some clips from that.
Go. Whoa. Oh. Bright light. I'm 9 centimeters dilated. They estimated James would come at lunchtime, but it's currently 4:45 a.m. And they just changed me into this upright position. And I have a feeling that James will not make it till lunchtime. He's probably gonna come this morning. I just got moved to my other side now, and I'm 9 centimeters dilated. I don't remember if I was in the last video. I think I was. And I still have the shivers, but I'm starting to feel pressure down south. So we'll see when this baby comes.
Towards the end, like right before I was about to push, I was starting to get really bad acid reflux, which we know has been a problem throughout like my 2nd trimester of pregnancy is when it started. So I actually called in the nurses and I was like, hey, is there any chance that I can get a Tums or anything? So the nurses came in with the syrups. They did not bring my Tums. They had different plans for me. So I'm over here thinking I'm getting relieved of my acid reflux. And I mean, technically in a way I was, but they came in ready for me to push out this baby. Mark was on a plane or boarding a plane at this point, and we were just praying that that plane had Wi-Fi, because since he couldn't be there, we were hoping there was some type of way he could be there. And thank the Lord the plane did. So he was able to FaceTime in, and once we FaceTimed him, the birth process got started.
Nickel times 1. Baby. Come on. And baby.
Baby! You got a baby!
9. Rock, show it.
Oh, listen to him! You can see him! Oh, look at that head of hair, Mark!
So good. I'm so proud.
Thank you.
I'm so good.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I pushed for 20 to 30 minutes and my grandma was there, and Mark again was FaceTimed in, and he was so supportive. He was cheering me on the whole time, and while he wasn't physically there, I felt like emotionally he was there, which helped so much. And I pushed for between 20 to 30 minutes, and at I think 5:59 is when I looked at the clock. I want to say he was born at 5:59. Let me double check. I should know that. That was so recent that this happened and I don't even know. Okay, yes, James was born at 5:59 on October 1st, and we were so happy to have him. And actually, I didn't see him for like maybe a minute or two because they laid him directly like on me when he was born. So Mark and my grandma got to see him first because my grandma was obviously videoing it and showing Mark, and she could see what she was videoing. So I didn't even see James' face right away. They were able to see him first, but they laid him on me, and it was so special. It was so amazing to just like see what had been forming inside of me for the last 9 months, and like what God and Mark and I created together. And it was just so beautiful and such a special moment, and I'm so grateful for how everything turned out. I honestly had such an amazing like birth experience. All right, and that is the end of our birth story. I hope you enjoyed it, and I have a few clips of like our first month with James that I'll throw into our next video. But I hope you enjoyed watching and enjoyed learning about how James came into the world a month early, which we are happy that he came early, so we got some extra time with him, but it was still quite the surprise. But I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.